Don't freak out if it's a challenge coming up with a story. The story isn't the point. What you need to be freaking out about is something different, which is, it's not about stories. I keep hearing this over and over again. It's all about telling a story. You must tell a story. You have to tell a story, as though telling stories is the key to your success, to your future fortune. It is not, folks. It is not. Of course, you can speak, change your intonation, use suspense, silence, all the good stuff of hooking people and taking them on a journey. You can do that without actually saying much, without actually sharing valuable information, without sharing why your potential ideal client customer should choose you over anyone else. And what happens then is they walk away, they forget everything that you said, they forget you. So if stories is not the answer, then what is? Aha! Let's take a step back. The reason people say stories are very important, you must tell a story when you want to communicate brilliantly, is because stories are a fantastic vehicle, a very human way of getting information across. But it's not about the story, it's about getting the information across. That's the thing to focus on. And I don't see anywhere that shares the fundamental building blocks of how to communicate effectively. So I created a system that does exactly this. If you want to find out more, let me know. The point is, I like to simplify complicated things, and I like things to make sense. Make sense from a physiological perspective, from the perspective of how our brain works. I mean, it's one of the reasons that I have a master's in medical engineering, because I want to ground what I do in reality. Okay, the reality of being human and the reality of what actually happens when you communicate, when you do things, when we put things into action. What's the reality of this and how can I do it? That's the thing that I'm all about. So when it comes to this and hearing stories, tell stories, I just think you're missing the point. It's not about the story. It's about the story being a vehicle to getting information across. And so if the purpose is getting specific information across, which if you were working with me, you would know it has to pivot on what makes you different, why people should choose you. You're not the only person with your degree, your qualifications, your experience. Yeah. Then you can tell all the stories in the world, but if you don't nail the reasons for people to pay attention to what you're putting out there, if they're not interested in it, then you've lost. They're not going to listen. Or if they listen because they're intrigued by the way you're speaking, they're not going to do anything about it. You're not going to influence them. And you know what? Influence is a key thing, because it's about changing behavior, getting them to say yes to your ask, buy your product, vote for you, forgive you, do the washing up, whatever the ask is. Let me rewind. These are the building blocks, and this is a sequence of how things happen if you want to influence someone. Interest them first. That's the thing. It has to be relevant to them. It has to beep, 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 be something they will spend time listening to. They want to hear you out. Oh, that's interesting. Oh, this is about me. It's relevant to me. Ooh. Okay, so interest them first. Interesting them equals getting their attention. Hooray. And it's about impact. So, you have had an impact on that person because they have stopped. They've stopped what they're doing, or they've brought their brain to you. They're tuning into what you're putting out. Impact. And then you want to influence them because you want something to happen as a result of what you're sharing, right? I mean, that's the reason you're doing it. You want them to buy your book, whatever, click on your website. There's something that you want them to do. And this is the influence piece. So you interest, impact, influence. And telling a story that does this is a lovely, wonderful human way to achieve that result. But do you need a story? No, you don't. If you do these 3 steps, interest, impact, influence, you're sorted. The other thing is this, I just find that it's a lot of pressure. Oh God, I've got to tell a story. What story do I tell? How do I invent a story? How do I create a story? How do I choose one that's the right one? People can get really stuck in this space of the story. take a step back and take a deep breath. It's not about the story. In fact, if you do this the way I teach, the story tells itself. You know exactly what to say and how to say it, what examples to bring up. The system tells you, because it takes the pressure off of you, and you fill in the blank templates, and it reveals itself. Oh, I know what to say now. I know what example. This is the perfect thing to share with them to highlight this. Yeah, that's where you want to be. Now, I don't know if any of this is landing with you. Have you ever experienced having to share something? Maybe it's at a pitch, a meeting, at an event, speaking at a conference, or even creating a report, and not knowing how to put it together in a way that is interesting, and having that pressure of, I have to create a story. Everybody says to do it well, I have to be able to tell a story, and I don't know where to start. And this is just too much for me, and I don't want to do this, and I don't like this feeling. You don't need to tell that story. Relax. Seriously. I want you to relax and to know that the secret to being a great communicator is in interesting the people, the right people for you, being able to hold their attention, and then being able to get them to do something that serves both of you. And speaking of influencing, let's influence the algorithm gods, and please hit subscribe, hit the bell, but more importantly, comment. Let me know, is this kind of thing the stuff that's interesting to you? Do you want to know more about how to communicate effectively with impact and influence in a calm, peaceful, consistent, relaxed way? Let me know, because I'll create more content around this if the answer is yes. My big message to you today is, don't freak out if it's a challenge coming up with a story. The story isn't the point. It's just a vehicle. What you need to be freaking out about is something different, which is, how am I going to interest them? And how am I going to influence them? And how am I going to get them to move from where they are now to that future thing that I want them to be, know, and do? That's what you need to know. Right, if you like this video, you're going to love this next one. Bye.